Over £1,500 dropping into your bank account in just 1 month, completely passive through dividend payments. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? This is a milestone that I reached January just gone. Today, we'll have a look at the stocks that I owned that paid me throughout that month, how much each one of those paid me, how much I owned of each stock, and how much I expect each of those stocks to pay me throughout the whole of 2025. Let's get into it. Welcome to Destination Wealth. Last year was the first time that I hit over £1,000 in just 1 month in passive dividend income. It was a massive milestone for me. I'm trying to reach it for a long time. The first milestone was trying to get paid dividends in every single month of the year. Some months were tiny amounts, other months were really good. I pay in just over £1,000 a month usually of my own money into my investments. That's into my ISA, my SIP. I don't pay any more into crypto at the moment, but mainly my ISA and my SIP. What I really wanted to get to was the point where I get paid a passive amount through the dividends that's more than what I'm actually paying in through my bank account, through direct debits and standing orders. It's great to get to that point. Before we start, I'd like to say none of this is investment advice. It's just my own stories. It's the stocks I've invested in. I'm not telling you to invest in these stocks. Do your own research. Seek out a financial advisor if you want to invest in individual stocks. You need to do a lot of research and a lot of homework before you do this. Or just stick to investing in the S&P 500 funds or the FTSE 100, things like that. ETFs, that sort of thing, if you don't want to do the research. I did a video not long ago, I think it was my last video, on the stocks that I owned and how much they paid me for January in just my SIP, my Hargreaves Lansdown SIP, but that was only part of the story. That amounted to about £1,200, just over £1,200. But today we're going to have a look at my SIP and my ISA combined. Some of the stocks I own in both of them. There's some I just own in my SIP and some that I just own in my ISA. So we're going to look at the two of them combined and see how much they all paid me just in January. Now this is only 10 of about the 22 stocks that I own that paid me throughout that month. So it's a snapshot really of what I get throughout the whole year. But let's have a look to see what we got. So what we're going to do is go through each individual stock. I'll tell you a brief little bit about each one, what they do and how much each one of those paid me in January. The first one we have is Reinvested. Now, Reinvested are a plant hire company, heavy plant hire company, based in the UK and in the States, Canada, all over the place. Pretty big FTSE company. Reinvested paid me £78.77 in January. The second is Associated British Foods, most commonly known as Primark. They and they also do farm foods. They own quite a lot of food brands as well. They paid me £287.60 in January. Both of those stocks that I've just spoke about were just in my SIP. The next one was Diploma. Diploma specialise in industrial seals for the gas and engineering, oil pipelines, that sort of thing. Diploma paid me £390.60. Again, just owned in my SIP, that one. The next one was Discovery. They're a specialist engineering firm, specialise in engineering parts and components, bespoke sort of stuff. Again, owned only in my SIP, and they paid me a small amount, £35.30. The next is Ecora. Now, Ecora are a mining royalty firm, so they fund mining companies who then pay them a royalty for each time they dig on the land that Ecora has funded. So I own Ecora in both my SIP and my ISA, and the combination of the two paid me £187.53. The next is Gore Street Energy Storage Fund. This is a fund, one of the few funds that I own. They specialise in energy storage. So they own battery farms basically all over the UK, Ireland and in the States. They're diversifying more into the United States. And I own these guys in my SIP and my ISA, and the combination of those two paid me £113.32. Next stock being Lion Trust. Lion Trust Asset Management, asset manager, fund manager. And again, I owned them in my SIP and my ISA, and they paid me £443.74 for the month. Next stock was Walt Disney. We all know Disney parks, films. They own a lot. They own Star Wars, a lot of IP they own. So Disney paid me a small amount again. They don't pay a great dividend, Disney. £20.70. Only owned in my SIP, that one. The last two are owned only in my ISA, and they are Iomart. And Iomart specialise in cloud software, like secure management services. And Iomart paid me £14.46. Last but not least, again owned in my ISA, is a fairly new company that I bought recently. And they're called MSI or MS International. And they've got three major arms to their business. They've got MSI Defence Systems, which specialise in surface-to-air gun emplacements for defence. They've got MSI Forks, which specialise in engineering replacement forklift truck forks, that sort of thing. And they've got MSI Global, which specialise in garage forecourt canopies and refurbishments. Now, MSI International paid me £51.35 in January. So the grand total of those 10 stocks in January paid me £1,544.60. That was a record for me. The most I'd ever been paid was about £1,100 in a month, but over those two accounts, over £1,500. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I'd got to that point where these companies were just paying me for not doing it, for just owning them. And all of those funds that I got in from those companies were just automatically reinvested straight back into the companies that paid me via what's called a DRIP reinvestment plan. Your account provider, so whoever you've got your SIP with or your ISA with, nearly all of them actually should have this as an option, whereby you instruct that company to just feed those funds from each dividend that you've been paid back into the stock that paid it to you. So for example, the £390.60 that Diploma paid me will then just buy £360 more stock of Diploma, which in turn will pay me more dividends the next time. And it's a really cheap way of reinvesting. So the fees are very small. Have a look at this little screenshot here of one stock that was reinvested. And I think the fees were about 99p. So very low fees to reinvest back in. And that's how that dividend snowball really grows. So next, we'll have a look at this chart, which just shows how much of each of those companies I had invested of my own money. So how much had come out of my bank account and I had bought of the stock, starting at Ashtead all the way down to MS International. And the next part of this chart will show exactly how much each of these stocks I expect to get paid in dividends for the whole of 2025. So Ashtead, we're looking at £370. Associated British Foods, £386. Diploma, £556. Discovery, £110. Cora, £428. Gore Street, £460. Lion Trust, £1,526. Disney, £40. Iomart, £48. And MS International, £220. So for the whole of 2025, all being well, now this is an estimate. It could be more, it could be less, because it depends on how well these companies do. If they do exceptionally well, sometimes they'll pay what's called a special dividend. Now, companies like B&M do this. So do Games Workshop. Greg sometimes do it. There's a few that do this. If they have an exceptionally good quarter or good year or a good couple of months, they'll announce that they'll pay more dividends than you expected. So that most companies will pay twice a year. Some, like Shell, will pay 4 times a year. Others will pay twice a year, but then pay what they call a special dividend. What I would expect each of these companies to pay me throughout the whole of 2025 is £4,146 for just owning them. Now that's like having an extra £4,000 being invested for you for free. So they're paying me to reinvest back into the companies, which will give me more dividends again. So what we'll look at next is the total value of each of those holdings, of each of the stocks. Now, you can see from this chart what I have invested in my own money, and the next line will show us exactly how much is worth each of the stocks worth. So that includes the capital appreciation and any dividends that have been reinvested. Now, you'll see straight away that the majority of these stocks are actually down on my original investment, but only down on the investment that I've put in myself. That's not including the dividends that have been reinvested. But out of all the stocks that are down, which is 6 of the 10 stocks are down. So only 4 of those 10 I'm actually up on as a valuation. But when you look at the total value, I'm up over £30,000. So the invested amount was 70,169. That's how much of my own money I've put into these 10 stocks, spread not evenly. It's spread over them. Some I've got more invested in, whereas others like Walt Disney is only 3,900. So it's not even at all. But yeah, £70,000 invested in my own money, and the total valuation of each of these stocks is 103,772. So that just goes to show you don't need to be a winner on all of them and still make really good money. Now, that's what the valuation of all those stocks is worth. If I took out how much of that 103,772 is reinvested dividends, I've actually paid in a lot less. So, the £70,000 that I've paid in, it's pretty difficult to work out because it's been over a long period of time. But some of that is actually from stocks that I've bought with the dividends that the stocks paid me, if that makes sense. So it's not actually money that's come out of my bank account. It's the dividends, like Diploma, for instance, that £390. I've bought £390 of dividends, which is included in that 70,000. But that's just one of those payments. It's over many, many years that those dividends have paid me. You don't have to be amazing at picking stocks, as long as you hold on. And what I expect is that not all these stocks are winning at the moment, but I'm holding on to them. And the fact that there's been a big drop in the stock market recently, a lot of really good name stocks have dropped through the floor, like Associated British Foods, Greggs, what else? Lion Trust. They've all had a tough time, but they're all still making really good money and their valuations are really low. Now, I've got a fair bit of cash sat in my ISA and my SIP waiting for just this period. So I'll be reinvesting in those low valuation stocks to buy me more of those, to get me more and more dividends as we go on. Now, it took me a fair bit of time to get up to £100,000 invested. At the moment, I'm well over £350,000 invested. But to get to that first 100,000 did take quite some time, because the most of the growth there is not the growth of the stocks. Yeah, you have some growth of the stocks with the dividends and the capital appreciation, but the majority of the growth comes from the money you're paying in from your bank account, like saving, basically. So it's slow going. It all depends on how much you're paying in each month. I only started off with £50 a month, it went up to £100, £250. Now I pay in about £1,100 a month, sometimes less. Some months I don't pay in any. It just depends. But it's that first £100,000 takes a while. But that old adage of it takes money to make money really does ring true, because when I reached that £100,000 mark, or around that mark, things really started to snowball and the growth just exploded. If you want to have a look to see how that happened, I made another video just on that. Check it out here.